Hello, good evening, Matilde. How are you? How do you feel today?
Hello, good evening. I'm good, thank you.
Great. Let's begin, please, with the class. Today is the last class for A10, and we finished everything. That means that as a full way of a review, we're just going to see all the things that we got to cover this model. Again, not taking a look at every lesson, but just mentioning them, asking some questions to see if everything is good. If everything seems great, we're going to go to the TOEFL practice, all right? But let's spend this first part of the class to be sure that everything is clear. All right, great. So first of all, before going little by little, I mean mentioning the elements and again seeing if everything is clear, do you have any specific questions? It can be about the lessons that we covered, about Pearson, or anything related to this model, because remember that today we finished this.
I don't think so. Yeah,
Okay, all right.
okay.
So let's remember that we have like 2 extra days. I believe that it's until Wednesday or Thursday that we have to complete the Pearson, right? Assignments plus the quizzes and the final test. So yeah, I believe that it's until Wednesday or Thursday. I'm not sure. Just as a reminder, also, please, this Thursday we are not going to have classes, right? So
Yeah.
I believe that we don't have this. You can also work on Pearson because tomorrow we're going to start a new unit, a new model, and we have again new assignments. But that's it. So if everything is clear, let's begin then with the short review. So first we got to see in the first unit, tenses review, tag questions, and infinitives. All right, you're going to let me know if you have any questions about these three elements. If not, I'm just going to ask a couple of questions to be sure that everything is clear and we can go to the next part. So what do you say? Do you have any questions here?
Not that I remember right now, at least.
Okay, good. Now, just one question per content that we got. In tenses review, we should know again the difference between most of the tenses that we covered so far. Again, just to be sure, let's try to work the elements that we should understand the difference of that are again the simple tenses in past and the present perfect ideas. So what can you tell me about these past tenses actually? The simple past, the past
Mhm.
continuous, and the present perfect. What is the difference between those three past tenses?
Well, the past simple, it's related to something that happened in the past and it already finished. The past continuous is something in the past that it was developing, so yeah, it's used more in relating or narrating something. And the past perfect, it's also something that happened in the past, but it's not that specific as a simple past. So I don't refer with, yeah, like, yeah, with a specific time. It's more ambiguous. So yeah, in that cases, we use the past perfect.
Okay, very good. It will be the present perfect, right? It is
Oh, yeah,
correct.
sorry, yeah, present perfect.
Good, very good. Yes, great. With you, we got to see, right, the past perfect also, just to try to see the difference. Did we see the past perfect in this or the previous unit or not yet, Matilde?
I don't think so. I mean, we practiced a little, but I don't think it was one of the themes or topics yet.
Okay, all right. Yes, I'm seeing, I don't see it here. I was thinking part of the tenses review, but no, it's not. A10. We're going to see that as a lesson in A11 and A12. So let's wait until then, all right, to be more specific about the past perfect. But it's great. What you said is correct. Good. Now, in that questions, that's pretty easy. But I want to know if you remember the exceptions. We have at least 3 exceptions for tag questions, Matilda. I don't know if you remember some of them.
Mm, no, I don't remember the exceptions.
All right. Oh, actually, let's get there little by little. First, I'm going to say or write some statements, and you're going to
Yeah.
tell me the tag question of those statements, right? Very simple. The first one is, you are in the park. You are in the park. What's the tag question for that one?
Aren't you?
Aren't you? She went to the store.
Doesn't she?
All right, close that one, but
No,
actually,
did she? Didn't she? Didn't? Yeah, it's
didn't
because
she?
it's past. Yeah, it's past. Yeah.
Exactly, right? So past, affirmative, negative, the
Yeah.
opposite. So great, very good. Then one word that is going to be easy. What about this one? They will start tomorrow.
One day.
One day, good. Now, be careful here. Remember, these are the tricky ones. We have to
Yeah.
recognize auxiliary verbs, verbs, and those details. So, for
Mm.
example, she has been sick.
She has been sick. Mm, so this should be in present perfect.
Mhm, that's correct.
Um, so it's not has. It's not hasn't she?
In this case, if it's the present perfect, remember, if you see the auxiliary, it's the auxiliary that you see. You only have to be careful if you don't see the auxiliary. But remember that in the present
Mhm.
perfect, you always see the auxiliary written in affirmative, negative, and questions. So actually, you have to use that auxiliary. So how would it be? Because in that one, in the idea, she has been sick, what is the auxiliary in that statement?
Has. Well, have has.
Exactly, right? So the
Mm.
rule says that for tag questions, we have to use the auxiliary. So actually, you have to use that one. So how would it be?
Um, hasn't, but
Yes, and let's compare. Perhaps in the comparison, you're going to be certain. What about this? Similar. We're going to keep that there. She has a best friend. She has a best friend.
yeah.
What would it be in that case?
Mm, well, that's the verb, so it will be that with does, right?
Correct?
Doesn't she? Yeah.
Doesn't she? Exactly. So the other one, no problem, right? We only have to be careful if have is the verb. If it's the verb, we cannot use it as haven't or hasn't because it's not the auxiliary, right? So what you said is great, right? She has a best friend, doesn't she? But if we say she has been sick, then has is auxiliary, so we have to use that as negative, right? Hasn't she?
Isn't.
There's no problem over there. If you listen to had in past, right? She had a best friend. What is the auxiliary for that one? She had a best friend.
Hadn't she?
Let's analyze if had in
Sorry,
that
sorry. No,
case.
no, she had because that's the verb. Yeah. No, it's didn't.
Uh-huh. Exactly, didn't she? But if it's the auxiliary in the past perfect that we didn't see in detail yet, it would be she had started before you arrived. In that case, what would it be? One more time, it was she had
Okay.
started before you
Mm-hmm.
arrived.
She had started. Hadn't.
Yes, exactly. Uh-huh.
Hadn't she?
So only be careful, only try to double think when you don't see the auxiliary, when you don't hear the auxiliary, right? And those situations only happen in two tenses, right? In the
Mm.
simple present and the simple past. So again, it's just to, I said, right? Perhaps that's why you were down a little bit more, because I said to be careful here, that they can be tricky, but actually you got them. All right, you got them. It's just because I told you to rethink that you were not sure about the first one. Just be careful with the simple past and the present simple. That's it. All right. Everything else seems to work great. Good. That's a questions. Again, tag questions are very simple, but remember they are a good way of practicing auxiliaries. Okay, to be sure that you know all of them, that you can recognize them. Then the three exceptions that we were saying, for example, if I say, I am your best friend, what's the tag question for that one?
Oh yeah, we saw that. I cannot remember. But I do remember we saw that part.
Exactly. You have to borrow, right, the conjugation of the plural conjugation of being. That would be are, right? So you say, aren't I, right? So I am your best friend, aren't I? Only when you use the verb to be. And remember, you can use the verb to be in first person, in the simple present with be, I am your best friend. In the present continuous, I am buying that car. In the future will be going to, I am going to travel tomorrow, right? So in three different tenses, you can use that exception. All right, aren't I, aren't I, aren't I? But of course, only if the first part, if it's affirmative. If it's negative, no problem, right? You can use am I. All right, so if it's negative, you say am I. But if it's affirmative, aren't I? Good. Now, what about this to go to the next part? Because the other ones actually are going to be pretty simple. It was, let me remember, yes, imperative. If I say, do your assignments, what's the tag question for imperatives?
It was with will, if I'm not.
Yes, yes, it's
Okay.
correct.
Okay, so it will be want. You said it affirmative.
Yes, but actually in this exception, we only use the affirmative way. Will
Okay.
you? Okay, good. That's great. Will you? And the other one, and the last one, is suggestions with let's. Let's go to the party.
Shall we? Shall we?
Shall. Exactly. All right. So good. Just take that into account. If you remember those exceptions, and if you remember the rule with auxiliaries, this is good. And not only tag questions. All right. In general, many things can be clear with that. That's great. Now, infinitives. I'm not going to ask specific questions. Just remember that you can use infinitives as subjects. They can be after some verbs. They can be the purpose of your idea, right? And you can use it even with other people to tell them what to do, or suggestions, right? I want you to help me with this. I need you to go there, and so on and so forth. Okay, that's it. Now, the next part, it has passive voice, quantifiers, and gerunds. And actually, in special cases, yes, and gerunds. Yes, I'm right. So in passive voice, again, I'm going to give you just a couple of ideas. You try to give me the passive voice of that one, or the opposite. I give you the passive voice, you give me the active voice. So in passive voice, if I say a very simple idea, this is the one that I gave you, I think, in that lesson. It was like Bolivia, all right, Bolivia created or produced, all right, produced a lot of products to export. All right, Bolivia produced a lot of products to export.
A lot of products from Bolivia. No, you said, sorry, again, the sentence, a lot of Bolivia
It was
produced.
exactly, Bolivia produced a lot of products to export or for exporting, any of those. But that can be like the complement. And you can mention that as part of your subject or at the end. But remember that the agent has to be mentioned at the end of your idea.
Okay. So a lot of products are produced from Bolivia. A lot of
All
products
right.
for export are produced by it would be by or from.
Yes, in this case, from, it's only if we are putting emphasis on the idea of the production, but in terms of being the ones working on the factory, all right, and creating that from the very scratch, all right. But if we are not mentioning that, we are just saying that they are the agents. So it's enough if you say by, all right, from like an origin, and by like the ones doing the action. All right, in this case, just by. Okay, it's good, but only one detail. In the idea Bolivia produced, the main idea is in simple past. It means that your passive voice also has to be in simple past. If you say are, that's present, right? How do you change that to simple past?
Bolivia, a lot of products. Were produced?
Correct. Exactly. The only thing that changes in all of the examples that you can have for passive voice is the verb to be, right? So it can be as, is, was, were, has been, have been, will be, can be, could be, and so on and so forth, right? So good, that's one. The next one, it will be, all right, the team, the team has written a new paper to publish. All right, the team has written a new paper to publish.
A new paper. A new paper was written by the team.
Yes, we are good. Just a little detail. The tense, remember in the example, is the team has written. Right?
Has written. Okay, so has a new. Sorry, what you said? A new paper.
Exactly. It would be in the. It would be the inactive. It would be the team has written a new paper to publish.
To publish. Okay. A new paper. The complement should be right next to, right? So a new paper.
Yes.
To publish.
You can put it there.
Okay. A new paper to publish. Has been written, but by the team.
Yes, it is correct. Has been written in this case, right? Why? Because again, the main thing that has to change is the verb to be, and the main verb is always going to be in the past participle, right? It doesn't matter the tense. So written, being, read, and so on and so forth. So good. That's it. I wanted to see those ideas to make you remember and make you reinforce the idea that the verb to be has to be the one that you conjugate in the passive voice. Just that. All right. So if you have questions, let me know. To me, that's enough. Quantifiers, I believe we don't need to, all right, give a look at this. It's only some, any, all right, a few, a little, much, many. If you have details about that, let me know. But I believe that it is clear. But again, I don't have questions about it. And gerunds, here I just want you to tell me again the main usages of gerunds, Matilde. When do we use gerunds?
Okay, again, as a subject, after some verbs. I'm forgetting. I'm forgetting. Which one I'm forgetting?
The one that you're missing is the one that is the 100% rule. It's always, every time after that.
Yeah, after it's right here.
Or you can give me an example if you don't remember the name.
I cannot remember. Oh my God.
It would be, remember, when we got to see this, we also saw a list of verbs plus the collocation that they have. For example, think of, think about, right? Interested in, depending on. And what do they have? It's the particle or preposition, right? right? So the third rule is that after
Yeah, right.
prepositions, all right? Just that one.
Prepositions.
We have that again, right? That's why we're reinforcing, just to remember, because again, it's always a good idea to have it there. Now, we also got to see here, Matilde, special cases. I don't know, I'm not going to ask you for the specific cases. Actually, you're going to tell me just one,
Mhm.
but I'm going to remind you that you have remember, right? That you have forget, that you have try, right? That you have stop. Those
Yeah.
verbs can be used with gerunds or infinitives, but the meaning is different, right? And we have to be careful. You choose one, Matilde, any of those four. Which one would you like to explain?
Okay, let me think. I think the one that I struggled the most, it was remember.
Yes, that one is really interesting. It will be good that you are sure about it.
Oh, mm, one of them. Okay, so one of them, it was when I remember, when I thought that no, that was forgot. No, I'm confusing with forget. When I thought that I forget something, but I didn't, that was with forget, not with remember. Okay, no.
It's going to be better if we have examples over there and you try to explain. For example, if I say, right, I remember traveling with you. All right, I remember traveling with you. And the other one is going to be I remembered to lock the door. Okay, luckily I remembered to lock the door. Okay, two different examples. So what are they conveying over there, Matilde? I remember traveling with you, and I luckily remembered to lock the door.
Yeah, I remember traveling with you. Well, that's something that I'm recalling something from the past. Um, yes, and the other one, luckily I remember to lock the door. Yeah, I mean something. Yeah, I mean something that I remembered, um, like at the last minute, but it wasn't quite like that.
Yes, yes, we're there. We can even put that in some other words. Look, so here, no, yes, well, actually, this is something. Let's use here, okay? We have some polite over there. So let's draw something like this, right? And let's say that the time right at which we say that we remember something is over here, right? We remember. So imagining that you say here, I remember, all right? I remember. If you use the gerund, right, we're going to use different colors. Let's use this one. All right, so if you're using here, right, I remember doing something, right? Remember doing, I can change this. I don't think so. All right, so we're remembering something that we did before the time, right, at which we said that. Before the time at which we are saying that we remember, right? So I remember doing something that happened in the past. But if we say, right, I remember to do, then we are not doing that. We are just and actually doing what? We, after this specific time, sorry, let's use this just to, we, after this specific time, remembered to do an action after we remembered, right? So here it would be again, remember to do something. Sorry. All right. So again, it would be then, right? I remember traveling with you, something that I already did. And I remembered to lock the door. Luckily, in the past, at the time that I remembered, right, I locked the door after that action, right? After remembering to do it,
Mm.
right? So that would be again the logic. You remember something that happened with ing, and you remember something that you had to do that you were about to forget, but luckily you didn't forget. And after remembering, you did that action, right? So ing, something that happened before, and infinitive, something that you did or you do after you remember. All right, that would be the logic more or less, Matilde. So with that, I would like you to give me then, please, just two examples. One would remember doing something, and one would remember to do anything, and give me a short context or explanation, and with that, we will be good.
Okay, so I remembered to no, I remembered driving my bike a lot when I was a child.
Okay, that's great. And why? Why are you deciding to use ing in that one? It's perfect, but what is the explanation that you can give?
Because it's something that I did in the past, and yeah, it's in my memory that that's something I used to do, and remember to do. I remembered I remembered to clean my garden um, this weekend.
Yes. It is good, right? As long as you are talking about something that didn't happen up to the time that you did the action of remembering, it is great. Okay, good. So again, you can also call this one is going to be considered a memory, and the other one is a reminder, something that you do or that you did after you remembered or remember. All right, so good. Then the other three again, they are going to be for you to practice. I'm going to try to ask you perhaps in the next course once again, but try to remember the usage of forget, stop, that I believe is easy, and try that it can also be easy, but again, practicing would be a good idea for all the three of them, and actually the four of them. But that's it. I don't know if you have any questions about then gerunds and these special cases, Matilde. Let me know, please.
No, I don't think so.
All right, very good. Now, we already mentioned the idea of the present perfect. You explained that to me, and the past, sorry, in the present perfect continuous, not a long ago. Embedded questions, right? Working with inversions, so I'm not going to ask anything about it. And participial adjectives. I just want to know if you remember what are participial adjectives, Matilde.
These adjectives that the boring board example, it's that, right? Okay, so yeah, that there are some adjectives that they're in with ing or with the ed structure, but they don't have the same meaning. Yeah, it's the ed, it's related more to my state, and the ing usually something external.
All right, very good. Yes, I believe that's clear. Models of possibility, we also got that one, right? May, might, and could. We know that some of them, remember, cannot be used in negative, and some of them cannot be used in questions, right? In negative, we don't use could, and in questions, we don't use may or might, right? Because might is not used in questions, and may is permission in questions, right? So let's have that into account. Reflexive pronouns, we remember this. I'm just going to remind you the four of them, and and you tell me if you have questions, right? You have the first type in which you do the action and you receive the action, right? I saw myself in the mirror, right? I do, I receive. In the second, emphasis for something different, or you want to say personally, right? I painted that work of art myself, right? Something impressive, something different, you want emphasis there. The third type, emphasis on the noun, right? The president himself has to be in charge of this meeting, right? The president himself, emphasis on the president. And finally, by myself or by oneself, that means alone, right? Nothing impressive, just something that you say that is without anyone else. So I always travel by myself. And that's it, all right? The four types. Again, any questions, you let me know. I'm not practicing with this because these are the last elements that we got to see. And finally, perfect modals, right? We have should have, must have, may have, could have, right? And they refer to past models to draw conclusions, to talk about past possibilities, quotation marks, to talk about regrets, and well, mainly that, right? Mainly those elements. But that's it. I don't know again, so that we can use this time that we have left, that I want to have at least these 20 minutes or more to work on the TOEFL ideas. So I don't know if you have any questions then, Mati. Please let me know.
No, I don't think so. I think it's clear.
All right, very good. So then we can close this and we can go to the TOEFL practice. Now remember, I'm sorry. First, we have to take a look at the last element that you were able to record that we couldn't listen, right? I said that for that last one, we didn't have to use the thing that we have to do today, right? We're going to try to do it today. But anyway, let me give you the feedback for that one first. All right, the one that we didn't get, well, check, it was the sleeping, right? The second recording for sleeping.
Yeah.
All right, so let's listen to it. I'm going to give you some ideas as I listen to your response.
Okay. I would always choose sleeping earlier. First of all, because an 8-hour sleep is essential to every human being. Especially as a working person, it's not possible for me sleeping too late at night if I want to have this 8-hour sleep. The second reason is because of health reasons. We all have a biological clock to respect, and sleeping too late at night won't help this health reason. For example, if we are at a party, even though we sleep these 8 hours, for the next day, you're not going to feel well because of this reason. So we really need to respect these two main things.
Okay, good. Now again, right here, we're not using that one. I didn't stop because we still have the structure that we were applying. We have, and it's good. You have a very short introduction. That's great, right? Remember, we're the ones that we have to see that. Then you start with, first of all, with the first idea and you give some reasons for that. Then you go to the second reason. And in the last part, you have one example, right? But at the end of everything, right? So we are still using the structure that we said that we have to use, and it's great. Now here again, the observations that I have are not related to the structure because it's something that we didn't change yet, that now we are going to do, but it's mainly related to some little details. So here, for example,
Second reason is because of health reasons. We all have a biological clock to respect, and sleeping too late at night won't help this health reason.
okay, I believe it's earlier.
especially as a working person, it's not possible for me sleeping too late at night.
Oh, over there, right? If you say it's not possible for me, after you have an object, when you say it's possible or impossible, you have to use the infinitive. If not, it's going to be incorrect, right? So for me to sleep, if you say sleeping over there, it's not going to be correct, right? I believe that's the one. And one detail in the last part.
Sorry, I lost you for a second. So it should be
Infinitive. It's
okay.
not possible for me to sleep. Always, always. If you have an object, it has to be an infinitive in that case.
Okay.
All right, good. And here, let me see if I find it here. Perhaps it was just something else.
At a party, even though we sleep these 8 hours, for the next day, you're not going to feel well because of this reason. So we really need to respect these two main things.
Okay, yes, I believe that everything else is working good. All right, now, again, good. The short introduction, you got to develop the two ideas, and you had the example, right? So all in all, again, the structure that we had is working good here. But again, I don't have then any observations. We just want to see now, as I told you, Matilde, if we can work with the ideal structure. I don't know if you remember what's the ideal structure that we can try today with the answering of selling drugs, perhaps, or this one. You're going to decide, all right? You decide if it's going to be with selling drugs or sleeping. But let's see if you remember the structure. What is the structure, the ideal structure that we can try now, Matilde?
Well, that would be. Sorry, I don't know what happened with my dog. That would be, I mean, the thing that I'm choosing and the two main ideas with an example, right? I mean, first idea, an example, and second idea, an example.
Correct. It can be, again, it's going to be demanding, and we have to be very fast with our ideas. All right, but that's why we're trying to do this with something that we are already familiar with, right? That are these two elements, the selling drugs and the sleeping questions. This is the third time we're going to work with this. So we should be able to have some elements and be able to do, all right, this. So yes, very short introduction, as you said, right? I prefer this because of the following reasons, periods, and you start with your developing, right? So first of all, I believe that it's important because of this and that. You can give like a short fact due to the fact that, and for example, right? Uh, Again, you have to go straight to the point. If you're going to talk about sleeping, right? For example, you can always give an example for that reason or for the opposite reason, right? I mean, you can say, when I slept, or yes, there was a period of time in which I was sleeping very early and I felt more energetic. Okay, that's an example that goes with my reason. But you can also do the opposite, an example that goes against your reason. And you can say, there was one time in which I was sleeping right after 9, and right, I was very, I don't know, right, tired, exhausted throughout the next day. So again, you have those two options, right? You can give an example that follows your reason, or you can give an example that goes against your reason to prove why what you're saying is good, all right? And you can do that for the two examples, for the two reasons. And again, it can be demanding. We're going to see how possible it is to keep exploring the possibilities. And that's it. I believe that that's it. Now, actually, let's decide, please. I'm going to look for the questions, but which one would you like to try with this structure, Matilde? The one about selling drugs or sleeping?
I think sleeping, this one, because I just listened to it, so I remember better.
Good, very good. So I'm going to read the question for you. I'm still going to give you some time to organize. And as I'm actually working and finding the question, start please working on your response, Matilde. Okay, give me 1 second and start working on that.
Okay.
All right, so I'm going to read it to officially have 1 minute. Let's read the question. It says, do you prefer to go to bed earlier at night around 9 o'clock p.m. or do you like to stay up until 12 o'clock a.m.? Provide specific details to support your explanation. Okay, so officially, please, we have 1 minute. Let's that response or prepare that response, and then I read the question for you again. All right, so please, 1 minute.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, so that's the 1 minute that we got. Now let's read this again and then you start your recording. It says, do you prefer to go to bed earlier at night around 9 o'clock p.m. or do you like to stay up until 12 o'clock a.m.? Provide specific details to support your explanation. So once again, all right, you work with your recording. As soon as I see that you're responding, I'm going to start with the timer also over here that I'm on my cell phone. So let's do it, please, Matilde. You're ready? Let's begin then.
Okay.
Good.
Okay.
Okay, good. So let's upload that, please. Again, we're going to give a short feedback. And after that, we're going to stop working with this type and we're going to take a look at a new type that is actually very similar. Let's say, actually, it's not like changing. It's like saying an alternative way of having these questions. All right, so first let's give the feedback and then I show you that.
Okay. Okay, I think it's done, but yeah, well, I forgot about the second example, but that's okay. We will see that.
Good. So yes, I have it over here. Great. Again, now, again, the idea of also doing these changes is that we're not going to try to saturate everything with this only. I think that we have now a very good, all right, let's say, uh, not just an idea, right? We have actually a good template to know how to work this with. We're going to go back to this, and this next one actually is pretty similar. Actually, again, it's the same. It's just like, again, one way of asking the same questions that you can have in the TOEFL. And it's good to be ready for the two or even three of these different ways of receiving this question. But let's first again have the feedback over here. And I believe that we're going to have again a great idea of what we can do in the next one. So let's listen.
Yeah, I think that's not the one. It should be the sleep 3. Yeah, that one.
Yes, you're right. There you go.
I would choose going to bed earlier at night. The first reason is because we all need 8 hours sleep. And in my case, whenever I start sleeping later at night, I cannot achieve these 8 hours. And this makes me feel terrible and it's not very productive for my work. The second
Okay, all right, good. And again, you are even the one right here. The two of us, we have to evaluate how it feels, how convincing it feels. Remember that the purpose of answering this and giving these examples and reasons and everything is that you have to sound convincing and you have to say things that make the examiner, right, say, okay, yes, it sounds convincing, it sounds great, she's using right good grammar, everything seems to be in order, so why not having the perfect score? All right, so good English in combination or merging that with these strategies is going to make you have a high score. But that's the idea. All right, so you have to help me here decide how convincing it can be, and even you start proposing ideas for how to improve. I'm going to propose that myself, but so far, again, it seems interesting. It seems good again, and it's great that you again give this example, and saying this as your own example is, I believe, one of the best things that you can do. But let's keep listening.
Okay. Reason is because we all humans have a biological clock that we need to respect. And even though we have an 8 hour sleep, if we cannot do it from a reasonable hour, this would affect us. This would affect our health. So these are the two reasons that I believe affect our performance at work.
Okay, good. Now again, in the second part, right, we have something different, but again, it's working in a good way because actually what you're doing is making the two feel sustained and supported by different elements, right? The first one, I think that the example is the one that is pretty strong over there, which is very good. And in the second part, you are mentioning details that can be important, right? You were struggling a little bit in the last part, but you were saying interesting and important details that were not an example, but were elements that we can consider facts or reasons to support that detail. All right. So again, I think this is interesting. And in this way, you are giving the same emphasis, but you are using different elements to give emphasis to those two ideas. So it's not bad what we have here. Actually, I will take this strategy into account. If you feel comfortable with this, you can keep practicing with this. All right. Again, the idea is look your strategy. All right. Look how comfortable you feel when you mentioned the example in the first part or in the second part. But the main idea, again, even though you have different strategies, you always have to make the two ideas balanced. That's the main thing that you have to do. Right. So let's remember what you have to do. Of course, you need the good English that you got, so that's great. But you need also organization, right? Time management, balancing the two ideas, having a short introduction. But again, if you little by little feel more comfortable with the time, you can say some extra things like a presentation, right? Instead of only saying I would choose this. You can say just the addition of I would prefer this because of the following motives, for example. Okay, because of the following motives, the following reasons, like an introduction, and then you start, right? A short pause, then you start the first one, a very short pause, you start the second one, and a very short pause or a long one that can be 2 seconds, or yes, 2 seconds, I believe it's good before finishing the recording, right? That would be the ideal structure. And I believe that we are not far from that. So again, I believe it is good. I don't know how comfortable you feel with that. Of course, we can keep improving, but let me know, please. I want to know your own feedback to your recording, Matilde.
Yeah, I mean, well, I was at the second reason. I couldn't find like a good example. So, I mean, this fact support maybe can help, but yeah, I think I just need to feel more comfortable with the structure, and in this way, yeah, I could keep improving.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right. Because as soon as this is going to be automatic, right? Because the idea of this is making this template, this structure automatic for you, right? So that you don't have to think on the structure. You're going to be just focusing on the contents that you say, right? And that's right. But again, then if you keep this way of saying the things, for example, the only thing you would have to do to improve is looking for better facts in the second part, right? Even remember that you can say some numbers. You don't need to give a specific or real information, but of course, you know, right, about it in a certain way, about the biological clock that we got and so on. So you can mention even the brain, right? Our brains are made in a way in which we have to rest for certain hours. If we don't do it, we feel like this and this. So you give like a list of things that makes the examiner understand that you are saying a fact and you're using information that really sounds convincing, right? So if you get to do that again for the second part, it is going to be perhaps as good as having the exam. All right. So again, have that. Actually, it doesn't have to be rigid, right? You can always have the idea of having balanced ideas, and they need to have examples or good facts. All right. Let's have it in that way. If you have it in that way, and again, as soon as or as long as they have the same attention from you, it is going to be good, I think. All right, great. Now, before finishing, in the chat, you have this type of question that is very similar, but in this case, you only have to agree or disagree with one idea. Okay, you don't have two options in the sense of sleeping at 9 or 12 or going here or there. No. Here, the only main statement in Matilde is teachers should assign daily homework to students. So do you agree or disagree, and why? Here we are also expecting you to have at least two good reasons, and you have to support those, right? It says explain your reasons using specific details in your argument. And by saying reasons again, we don't say three, four, we just say two, that they have to be supported. So let's try this, please. Let's also record. Actually, let me give you 1 minute once again to prepare your response. You here you have to say I agree or I disagree. Okay? I agree because of the following details, because of the following ideas, because of the following reasons, because of the following motives. And you start developing your reasons for agreeing or for disagreeing with this statement. Okay, so let's start please with 1 minute. Let's organize the ideas, and I'm going to start now with the timer.
Okay.
All right, so I read everything again. It says, state whether you agree or disagree with the following statement. Then explain your reasons using specific details in your argument. Teachers should assign daily homework to students. All right, so please, the same. Let's have 45 seconds. Record, you start recording, and I start my timer as well.
Okay.
Good, let's do it, please. Okay, there you go. Now, again, let's upload that. Here, I'm not going to be, again, I'm going to give feedback, of course, not now. It is going to be tomorrow. Why? Because now, as you're uploading your recording, Matilde, we are going to listen to the response that they have as a model as we are reading. All right, so this is that they gave us as a response that again we can use as a model. We can take some ideas from this element to again give an answer in this type of question: agreement or disagreement. Okay, so let's listen. Let me know if you can listen this correctly.
Okay.
I agree with the idea of giving children homework on a daily basis. I feel this way for two reasons.
Okay, but you can hear it good, right?
Yeah, I can. Yeah.
Okay, good. So let's listen to everything.
I agree with the idea of giving children homework on a daily basis. I feel this way for two reasons. First of all, I think that it will help children to retain what they've learned for a much longer period of time. The only real way for kids to absorb a lesson is to actually go home and repeat it as much as they possibly can. And in the long run, this kind of thing will lead to a lot more academic success. Secondly, I believe that homework can actually give children an opportunity to bond with their parents. For example, I got a lot of daily homework when I was in elementary school, and I'd go home and do it with my mom and dad, and I'd ask them questions whenever I was having trouble. And in time, we actually became really close.
Very good. Now, if you analyze again in the interesting way that this person prepared everything, this is what we're doing, right? You have the introduction, the presentation of that. I feel this way for two reasons. Of course, this person is using more elements. First of all, in the first part, he doesn't have like an example, but he's mentioning again, let's call them facts. All right, the only real way for kids to absorb a lesson is actually go home and repeat it as much as they possibly can, right? Because that's something that we hear every time, repetition, memory, right? So that's a fact. And in the second part, he's mentioning one example, but in this case, it feels, right, like it's imbalanced, even though he's not mentioning two examples. Why? Because it's what you did. One of the reasons is receiving some facts, the other one is receiving one example. If you analyze again, the example also makes this statement strong because it feels convincing, and he's proving that actually it can create, right, a connection between children and parents, right? It can improve the bond with them because of the contact that you need as you are doing your homework with them, right? So again, I don't know, we're going to listen to your ideas again in the next class. And what I want you with this specific web page is always giving your response first and then comparing your response to these models that you have here. All right, why? Because you can get more elements, you can use some ideas, you can use some reasons, examples, and you can even repeat examples, of course, that is not forbidden, but in order to have an idea of what are the possibilities when you need to give examples in all the situations that you might encounter. All right. And again, you have things like this, or children should should help their parents with household, all right, chores, and as soon as they are old enough. That's what it says. So here again, we need to work on this element. We're going to do that not now. We're going to continue working on this tomorrow or the day after tomorrow. As we start a new model tomorrow, we're going to see if it's possible. If not, the day after tomorrow. But that's it. I don't know if you have any comments about this model and how you feel it can help you improve even more, Matilda. Let me know, please.
I think it's great. Yeah, and it's great to see this as an example. I think, yeah, this would definitely improve my responses. So yeah, yeah, I think
That's
it's great.
great. And again, I'm showing you also this to make you see that we are not far from this, that we are building our progress towards this type of structure. All right.
Yeah.
And as soon again as you feel comfortable with this, it's going to be just repeating, practicing, and that's going to be automatic. And you're just going to be filling that out with information. All right. Different types of information. But again, you're going to have that ready for the top. All right. So let's finish here, please. Today is the last class for this module. So as always, I'm going to send two polls. All right, this is the daily poll first that you see over there. All right, and this is the last one. Okay, you might see it now. So thanks for being today here, Matilde. I hope that you have a good night, and I'll see you tomorrow to start the next one.
Okay, thank you. Good night.
You're welcome. Bye-bye. Good night.
Bye.